The cul-de-sac looked like every other picture-perfect American suburb. Manicured lawns, identical beige houses, and American flags fluttering at exactly the regulation 3-foot height. But beneath that postcard surface, Pinewood Estates was ruled by one woman, Karen Mitchell, president of the HOA board for the last 8 years. She wore her power like a designer scarf, always perfectly knotted, always ready to strangle anyone who stepped out of line. 2-inch grass height violations, unauthorized holiday lights. Even a single dandelion on your front yard could trigger a certified letter and a $250 fine. Karen called it preserving property values. Everyone else called it living under a dictator who smiled while she tightened the noose. I was Sarah Thompson, the resident everyone whispered about. 32, single, driving a 10-year-old Honda that somehow still passed inspection, living in the smallest house on the block. Karen had labeled me that frugal loner in every board meeting for years. I've been cited 6 times for lack of community spirit, once for not displaying the official Pinewood Estates welcome sign in my window during the annual 4th of July parade. I paid every fine without argument, never showed up to meetings, never complained. I just smiled politely at the community mailbox and went back inside. What they didn't know, what nobody could know, was that my quiet little life was the perfect cover. The invitation arrived in a heavy cream envelope with gold embossing. You are cordially invited to a celebration dinner honoring Pinewood Estates' newest vision. Hosted by President Karen Mitchell. Dress, business casual to elegant. It was held at the Sterling Grill. The kind of steakhouse where the wine list has more pages than the food menu and the waiters wear actual tuxedos. Might wait. No. Karen had chosen it, which should have been my first red flag. Karen never paid for anything herself. She always found community funds or generous donors. Tonight's donor, apparently, was going to be me. I almost didn't go. But after 5 years of enduring her little power trips, I wanted to see what fresh nonsense she had planned. So I put on the one black dress I owned, the one that still had the tags because I'd bought it for a work thing I never attended, and drove over. The private dining room smelled like aged beef and entitlement. Karen sat at the head of the long table like a queen holding court. Board members, my neighbors who had nodded along to every one of her finds, were already there. The retired accountant couple who always seconded her motions, the yoga instructor mom who called me low vibe in the group chat, and even old Mr. Hargrove, who once ratted me out for leaving my trash can out 2 minutes past pickup time. They beamed at Karen the way my family used to beam at my brother. Order anything, Karen announced, gesturing grandly at the leather-bound menus that didn't list prices. Tonight is on the community, well, on a very special community member who's finally stepping up. Her smile was wide, confident, the smile of someone who believed she just pulled off the cleverest move in HOA history. I chose the cheapest entree I could find, a roasted chicken that still cost $38, and tried to ignore the way Karen's perfectly arched eyebrow lifted in amusement. Always so cautious. Sarah, she said, sipping her $200 Cabernet. Never taking risks. Never splurging. That's your problem. Dear, you're so busy being careful you forget to actually live. The table murmured agreement. The yoga mom leaned in. You live fine, I suppose. But well, we worry. Tiny house. Old car. Never hosting a single block party. It's like you're stuck in some Depression-era mindset. Karen's husband, bless him, the only one who looked slightly uncomfortable, tried to change the subject, but she steamrolled right over him. We're celebrating tonight because I've finally found a way to make Pinewood Estates the envy of every neighborhood in the county. A brand new community center with a resort-style pool, fitness wing, an event hall, $11.5 million. And I've secured the 20% down payment already. The table erupted in applause. Actual applause. like she just cured cancer instead of announcing a vanity project. Karen soaked it up, then turned those laser-focused eyes on me. Sarah, you should be especially proud, because without you, none of this would be possible. I set my water glass down slowly. Without me. She reached into her designer bag and pulled out a folded paper with the flourish of a magician revealing a rabbit. It was a bank transfer receipt. My bank. My account number. A transfer of $2,287,543.18 to an escrow account in Karen Mitchell's name. Finally, she announced, waving the paper like a victory flag. I put your hoarded savings to good use. You can thank me later. The table clapped again. Louder this time. Someone actually whistled. I kept my voice level, the same calm tone I'd practiced in crisis simulations for years. How exactly did you access my account? Karen. She laughed, the sound tinkling like expensive crystal. Oh, honey, you left your banking login on the community center laptop 3 years ago. Remember when you paid your dues online during the holiday potluck and used the public terminal? You saved the password. I found it last month while I was updating the board's financial files. Figured it was a sign from the universe that you needed a little nudge toward progress. I felt the ice slide through my veins, but my face stayed neutral. You accessed my account multiple times over 3 days, transferred over $2 million without my permission, and impersonated me to the bank when they called to verify. Invested, she corrected, still smiling. 20% down on our dream community center. 60-40 split, me 60 because I found the deal and I'm doing all the work. You 40 just for providing the capital. In 5 years, your money will be worth at least $4 million. We're partners now. Sarah, you should be grateful. The board members nodded like this was the most generous act in HOA history. The yoga mom reached over and patted my hand. Karen's always looking out for the neighborhood. You never would have invested it yourself. You're too afraid of losing it. She did you a favor. I checked my phone under the table. 3 new notifications, all within the last 10 minutes. First, transfer detected. Tracking initiated. Standby. Second, suspect account identified. Funds frozen. Third, Special Agent Rebecca Torres. FBI. 8 minutes. Maintain position. I looked up. The entire table was staring at me, waiting for my grateful tears. Everything okay? Karen asked, her voice dripping false concern. Fine, I said. Just checking something. She laughed again. Probably checking your account balance and freaking out that the money's gone. Relax. Sarah, I'll send you monthly statements. You can watch the investment grow. I took a slow breath and leaned forward, keeping my tone conversational, almost friendly. The thing is, Karen, that account you emptied isn't actually my personal savings. Her smile faltered for half a second. Of course it is. It's in your name. It's in my name, I agreed. But it's not my money. It's evidence. The room went dead silent. You could hear the ice clinking in someone's water glass 3 seats away. Evidence of what? The retired accountant asked slowly. I can't tell you that, I said. It's classified. But I can tell you that the $2.3 million you just moved is tagged, tracked, and monitored by the FBI Cybercrime Unit as part of an ongoing investigation into a major theft ring. I'm the custodian of record, and I've been an undercover senior digital forensics analyst for the last 5 years. Karen's face drained of color beneath her perfectly applied foundation. You work for the FBI? Correct. The boring job, the tiny house, the old car, all cover. My real life is protected information. I don't advertise it because it could compromise active cases or put me at risk. I let my gaze sweep the table. Criminal organizations love targeting investigators' neighbors and community leaders, people who think they can leverage family, or in this case, neighborhood loyalty. Karen's husband looked like he might faint. The yoga mom's hand flew to her mouth. Old mister, Hargrove suddenly found his napkin fascinating. I continued, voice still quiet, almost gentle. The moment you initiated the first transfer 3 days ago, alarms went off in our systems. Every transaction has been documented. Every phone call where you impersonated me to the bank. Every lie you told the escrow company. You didn't just commit bank fraud and identity theft. Karen, you stole federal evidence and attempted to launder it through a commercial real estate transaction. That's obstruction of justice on top of everything else. The Sterling grill had gone oddly quiet. I glanced around. For people in dark suits had entered the private room and were now positioned at the exits. I recognized Special Agent Rebecca Torres immediately, her badge already clipped to her belt, visible to anyone who knew what to look for. That's her, I said softly. Rebecca stepped forward. Karen Mitchell, you're under arrest for theft of federal evidence, bank fraud, identity theft, and obstruction of justice. Stand up, please. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish. This is a misunderstanding. I was helping the neighborhood. I was helping Sarah. Mom. Stand up, one of the other agents said, voice flat and final. She stood on shaking legs, designer heels clicking against the hardwood. The handcuffs clicked shut with a sound that echoed like a judge's gavel. The rest of the board sat frozen, watching their fearless leader get read her Miranda rights in the middle of a $500 a plate dinner. What about the community center? Karen blurted as Rebecca began leading her away. The escrow, the deposit. The funds have been frozen, Rebecca said. The deal is void. The $2.3 million will be returned to FBI custody within 24 hours. And you, Ms. Mitchell, are looking at 10 to 20 years in federal prison. The other patrons in the main dining room were openly staring now. Phones were coming out. Someone was already recording. Karen's perfect HOA empire was collapsing in real time, live-streamed to the neighborhood group chat before we even left the building. I turned back to the table. The board members looked at me like I'd just murdered Santa Claus. You let them arrest her, the yoga mom whispered. Your own neighbor. She stole $2.3 million in federal evidence, I said evenly. What did you think would happen? We thought you'd fix it, the accountant sputtered. You work for the FBI. You could have warned her. No, I replied. I couldn't, and I wouldn't. Karen found my login information, and instead of reporting a security breach like any decent person would, she exploited it. She planned this for days. She executed it deliberately. Those facts don't disappear just because she wrapped them in pretty words about community progress and helping Sarah. I pulled out my personal credit card and handed it to the waiter, who had been hovering nervously. I'll take the check. The bill was $876 and change. I paid it without blinking, left a 25% tip because the staff didn't deserve this circus, and stood up. Where are you going? Someone asked. Home, I said. I have a long debrief tomorrow. I need to document everything for the prosecution. I left them sitting there in the ruins of their celebration, surrounded by half-eaten prime rib and the shattered remains of Karen Mitchell's reign. The drive back to my quiet little house was peaceful for the first time in years. No more certified letters in the mailbox. No more whispered insults at the mailbox. Just the knowledge that sometimes the system actually works when you let it. The next morning, the neighborhood group chat exploded. Screenshots of Karen being led out in handcuffs flooded the feed. Someone had posted the video from the restaurant, grainy but clear enough to show her perfect smile cracking the moment the cuffs clicked. The comments were a glorious mix of shock, schadenfreude, and desperate damage control. This can't be real. Karen would never. Wait, she stole federal money. Sarah worked for the FBI? That quiet mouse? I muted the chat and went to work. At the field office, Rebecca was waiting with fresh coffee and a tablet. You okay? I'm fine, I said. That was just another Tuesday for me. She studied me for a long moment. Most people will be losing their minds right now. Your entire neighborhood just watched their queen get arrested because she stole from you. I'm upset, I admitted. But I'm also a professional. Karen committed multiple federal crimes. I did my job. Those two things don't cancel each other out. She slid the tablet across the desk. We need your statement. Everything she said, every lie, every brag. The board members are already lawyering up, but your testimony is going to bury her. I spent the next 3 hours typing. Every condescending remark at the table. Every detail of how she admitted spreading the transfers over 3 days to dodge daily limits. Every time she impersonated me to bank security. It was all on record now. Slam dunk case. Rebecca called it. Over the following weeks, the neighborhood turned on me faster than they'd turned on Karen. Certified letters started arriving again, this time from the new acting president, demanding I explain my role in the destruction of community morale. Someone key my car. The yoga mom started a petition to have me removed for endangering property values by involving federal authorities in private HOA matters. I paid the new fines without comment and kept every receipt. Evidence was my love language. Karen's arraignment made the local news. Prominent HOA leader arrested in shocking federal fraud case. The mugshot was priceless. Her usually flawless hair slightly mussed. Mascara running just enough to show the real woman underneath. Bail was denied. Flight risk, they said. Plus, the judge didn't appreciate her trying to spin the theft as community investment. My phone rang constantly for the first week. Block numbers. Voicemails calling me a traitor. A snitch. A heartless monster who destroyed a good woman trying to improve the neighborhood. I changed my number after the 15th message. The new acting board sent an official letter. Your continued presence is no longer welcome at community events. I framed it and hung it next to my commendation from the director. The trial was set for 8 months later. I spent the time doing what I do best, quietly building the case. Every email Karen had sent bragging about securing the down payment. Every board meeting minute where she'd praised herself for creative financing. Every witness statement from the restaurant staff who'd heard her gloat. It was beautiful in its completeness. During those months, I started noticing little changes around the neighborhood. The grass police disappeared. People actually left their trash cans out a few extra minutes without fear. One neighbor even planted wildflowers in her front yard, something Karen would have fined her $500 for. The tyranny was lifting, and nobody wanted to admit it had been tyranny all along. The trial itself was a circus. Karen showed up in a navy pantsuit that probably cost more than my car, looking every inch the wronged philanthropist. Her lawyer tried the ignorance defense. She didn't know the money was federal evidence. She was only trying to help. She genuinely believed she was acting in the best interest of the community. The prosecutor played the restaurant video. The jury watched Karen wave that transfer receipt like a trophy while the board applauded. They heard her admit she'd used my save password. They heard her laugh about how I was too afraid to invest it myself. By the time I took the stand, the jury was already leaning forward, eyes wide. I testified for 3 hours. Calm, factual, professional. I walked them through the timeline, the tracking algorithms. The moment the first transfer triggered every red flag in our system. I explained how federal evidence accounts are tagged at the molecular level. Every dollar carries invisible digital fingerprints. Karen's creative financing had lit up our monitors like a Christmas tree. The cross-examination was pathetic. Her lawyer tried to paint me as cold, vindictive, a neighbor who lured Karen into a trap by leaving my password on a public computer. I looked him dead in the eye. I left my password on a community laptop 3 years ago because I was paying legitimate HOA dues like every other resident. Your client chose to exploit that breach instead of reporting it. She chose to transfer millions without consent. She chose to lie to banks. Those choices were hers. The consequences are hers too. The jury deliberated for 40 minutes. guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge was not amused. Ms. Mitchell, you didn't just steal money. You stole tagged federal evidence in an active investigation. You accessed protected systems. You committed bank fraud, identity theft, and obstruction of justice, all while hiding behind the respectable title of HOA President. You did this deliberately, over multiple days, with planning and premeditation. And you did it to a neighbor who should have been able to trust you. 15 years in federal prison. The courtroom erupted. Karen's husband sobbed. The former board members looked shell-shocked. I sat quietly in the back row, hands folded, feeling nothing but the deep satisfaction of a job completed. The death threats started the same day. Anonymous letters in my mailbox. Emails from newly created accounts. Even a few bricks through my window, wrapped in notes calling me the neighborhood rat. The FBI took them seriously enough to assign protective monitoring and add charges against 2 former board members for threatening a federal officer. I changed my phone number again, installed better security cameras, and kept living my quiet life. 3 years passed. I was promoted to assistant section chief of the cybercrime unit. My salary jumped to $183,000. I bought a modest house 2 towns over. Nothing fancy, just a place with no HOA and a yard I could let grow however I wanted. I dated occasionally. I made friends with colleagues who understood that sometimes community loyalty has to take a back seat to integrity. I never visited Karen in prison, never wrote, never responded to the letters her lawyer forwarded begging for mercy from a fellow resident. The last I heard, she was still appealing, still claiming she was the victim of an overzealous federal government that didn't understand small-town values. Pinewood Estates eventually elected a new board, normal people who actually wanted to maintain the neighborhood, not rule it. The ridiculous fines stopped. The community center project was quietly canceled. The land was sold to pay back some of the legal fees. A few of the old board members moved away rather than face the stairs of the mailbox. One afternoon, I got a forwarded letter through official channels. It was from Karen. Sarah, I don't expect you to read this or forgive me. Prison gives you a lot of time to think. I finally understand what I did, not just the theft, though God knows that was bad enough, but everything before it. The way I treated you, the way I belittled you in front of the whole neighborhood, the way I decided your money, your life, your choices were less important than my vision. I thought I was smarter, more ambitious, more worthy. I thought you were weak, but you were never weak. You were principled. You had integrity. You knew who you were, and you never compromised that, not even when the entire neighborhood turned on you. I have no right to ask for forgiveness. I destroyed my own life through my own choices. I just wanted you to know you were right to report me. You were right to testify. You were right to let the system work. I am sorry. Karen, I read it once, folded it neatly, and filed it away with the rest of the case evidence. Maybe someday I'd reply. Maybe not. Either way, I was fine. My old neighbors eventually learned the truth, piecemeal, through court documents and news articles. A few sent awkward apology emails. I deleted them. The yoga mom even tried to friend me on social media with a message about healing the community. I left it on read. 5 years after the arrest, I drove past Pinewood Estates on my way to a new case. The lawns were still green, the flags still regulation height, but the atmosphere felt lighter. No one was measuring grass with a ruler anymore. Kids were riding bikes without fear of citation. Someone had planted sunflowers in the median, bright, messy, and gloriously against every old rule Karen had ever enforced. I smiled, just a little, and kept driving. I was 45 when the final chapter arrived. Karen had been released after serving 11 years with good behavior. I heard about it through law enforcement channels, not through any neighborhood gossip. She never contacted me. Her husband had divorced her years earlier. The former board members had scattered. My parents, long since moved to Arizona, had passed away within 2 years of each other. Their estate lawyer tracked me down with a copy of the will. They'd left everything to my sister and included a specific clause. Our daughter Sarah is not to receive any portion of this estate as she has proven herself to be without loyalty, compassion, or community values. I had the lawyer send me a copy of that clause. I framed it and hung it in my home office right next to my FBI commendations, because I had learned what real values actually were. Real community values don't include protecting criminals. Real neighborhood loyalty doesn't mean looking the other way when someone steals millions. Real integrity means doing the right thing even when it costs you everything. Even when the entire cul-de-sac calls you heartless. Even when you end up alone. I still live quietly. I still drive an unremarkable car. My lawn is whatever length I feel like on any given day. And every morning when I walk out to get the paper, I look at the sky and remember the moment Karen's smile finally cracked in that expensive steakhouse. Some principles are worth more than any HOA president's approval. Things like justice. Things like the rule of law. Things like knowing you did the right thing even when it was the hardest thing. Even when it left you standing alone in a room full of people who once clapped for your bully. I never regretted it. Not for a single day. And honestly, that quiet satisfaction is worth more than any community center could ever be.